After 5 years of marriage, Julian and I couldn't conceive. We then tried IVF for 3 years, finally succeeding in getting pregnant with twins in our 8th year. But when I was over 4 months pregnant, I accidentally overheard a conversation between him and a friend. You have a high sperm DNA fragmentation rate, and Audrey went through IVF 7 or 8 times over 3 years, which aged her by more than a decade. You actually transferred most of our marital assets into his mistress's name behind his back. Isn't that too cruel? Julian didn't care, raising an eyebrow. If I wasn't feeling bad for Vanessa having to go through IVF, I probably would have divorced him long ago. You haven't seen what he looks like without his clothes on now, all that flab. And her face is covered in spots since she got pregnant. I find it utterly unappealing. I looked down at the prenatal scan report in my hand and turned to the hospital to schedule an abortion procedure. After the 4D ultrasound, I held the ultrasound photo of Babe's profile, looking at it again and again. Seeing those 2 tiny bodies curled up like little bean pods, I felt an indescribable affection. Julian had been busy with company matters these past 2 days and hadn't been home. I couldn't wait to show him these photos. At the coffee shop downstairs from the company, I bought coffee and his favorite sea salt caramel cake. The front desk girl saw me and greeted me familiarly. "Ms. Miller, you're here. Mr. Sullivan is in the CEO's office now. Mr. Blackwood just arrived. They might be discussing something." I smiled and nodded at her, walking straight towards the CEO's office. The Mr. Blackwood the front desk mentioned was Nathaniel. He was Julian's and my college classmate, and now he had business dealings with Julian. His wife, Willow Hayes, is my best friend. We've always had a good relationship, so there's no need to be formal. Just as I was about to push open the office door, I heard Nathaniel mention my name. "Don't play with fire, kid. If Audrey finds out about this, it won't be a joke." I paused, my hand on the door. The voices from inside continued. "You have a high sperm DNA fragmentation rate, and it wasn't easy for Audrey to get pregnant. I heard Willow say that she went through IVF 7 or 8 times over these 3 years to get pregnant, and it aged her by more than a decade. You transferred most of our marital assets into Vanessa Reed's shell company behind her back. Isn't that too cruel?" Nathaniel looked at Julian with disapproval, but Julian simply raised an eyebrow playfully. "Ha, you talk as if you're so devoted to Willow Hayes. I'm warning you, don't let Willow Hayes know about this. If you spill the beans and it gets back to Audrey, I'll be done with you." Nathaniel said nothing more, and Julian continued. "It's not about being cruel or not. Who can guarantee that a relationship will last forever? If it weren't for my high sperm DNA fragmentation rate, and being afraid of Vanessa suffering through IVF, I would have divorced Audrey last year. Of course, I wouldn't treat her badly if we divorced. Once she gives birth, I'll give her enough money to live comfortably for the rest of her life." Nathaniel was silent for a while before saying softly, "No, are you serious? I thought it was just a casual fling to blow off some steam. But a woman like Vanessa Reed is clearly after your money. Besides, you and Audrey have been together since college. I don't believe you have no feelings for her at all." Julian scoffed, as if the question was too foolish. He carelessly swirled the water in his glass, saying it was false to claim no feelings at all. Even keeping a cat or dog for a long time develops affection, let alone a living person. But now, Julian frowned slightly with disgust. "Audrey has gained so much weight these past few years. You haven't seen what she looks like without her clothes on, all that flab, and her face is covered in spots since she got pregnant. Her nose also suddenly became quite unattractive for some reason. I find it really unappealing. With her like this now, I'd be embarrassed to take her out. Since I'm going to be spending money supporting someone anyway, why shouldn't I find someone young and pretty?" My hand, clutching the prenatal scan report, trembled, and my ears buzzed. In that instant, reality and memory split into 2 worlds, making me unable to distinguish if the scene before me was illusion or reality. Back in college, Julian pursued me so openly that everyone knew. His affection was ardent and direct, so fervent it left nowhere to hide. But my nature was introverted, and faced with his surging emotions, I instinctively wanted to shy away. He pursued me for 2 years before we got together. But in reality, once we were truly together, I became the one who gave more. I remembered his peanut allergy, his dislike for cilantro, his preference for water at 60% hot, and his love for sea salt caramel cake. Yet he always forgot my mango allergy. Later, as time went on, our interactions gradually became harmonious. I thought I had finally understood him, the sensitivity and arrogance hidden beneath his childish exterior. I naively believed I had found the secret to getting along with him. But looking back, What secret was there? It was merely that through our daily interactions, I had long become accustomed to compromise and concession, and had normalized my grievances. I looked down at my already noticeably bulging pregnant belly. For some reason, I chuckled softly. To get pregnant, I had paused my work, given up coffee, tea, and raw seafood, and disciplined myself almost ruthlessly. Because of Julian's high sperm DNA fragmentation rate, the embryo quality never met the standards. Over 3.5 years, I went through 8 IVF transfers, and I don't remember how much hormone medication I took. I only know that under the influence of the medication, my body rapidly gained weight and deformed, and my emotions were often on the verge of breakdown. I endured the pain of repeated egg retrieval procedures, experiencing a cycle of hope and despair. But in the end, my suffering was nothing but a joke. Time seemed to stand still, a few short minutes stretching into a century. When I finally reacted, I realized my lip had been bitten raw, my mouth filled with the taste of blood. I took a few deep breaths, forcing myself to calm down, then turned and went downstairs, taking a taxi to the hospital. Dr. Evans held my test report, repeatedly confirming with me that the fetus was 20 weeks old and developing healthily. "Are you sure you want to terminate the pregnancy?" My heart ached and trembled, but I still nodded through tears. The doctor looked at me deeply. He put down the report, clasped his hands, and said solemnly, "Ms. Sue, as a doctor, I must inform you of the risks. Terminating a pregnancy is not a simple procedure, especially since you are carrying twins. A mid-term induction abortion will cause significant harm to your body. We need to first use medication to induce contractions, and then perform the surgery after your cervix has dilated. This process may lead to complications such as infection, severe hemorrhage, or even uterine rupture. So, I hope you will consider carefully and not make a decision based on emotional impulse. Or perhaps have the father of the children come in to discuss it." I lowered my eyes, my expression full of self-mockery. The children's father was already dead. "Doctor, I am very certain. Please help me schedule the surgery." The doctor opened his mouth but ultimately just sighed in resignation, and gave me the test and surgery orders. Julian came home past midnight, reeking of alcohol. He stumbled into the bedroom, habitually reaching for me and pulling me tightly into his embrace. His hot breath brushed my neck, but the name he murmured was someone else's. I pushed him away in disgust. He mumbled unconsciously, rolled over, and quickly fell into a deep sleep. Sleep eluded me. I sat up restlessly, my gaze falling on his phone by the pillow. After a moment of hesitation, I grabbed his hand and pressed it to the fingerprint sensor. Everything in the messaging app seemed normal, the recent contacts list clean and flawless. But as if possessed, my finger tapped the blocked list. On the blocked list, there was only one account with the nickname Vanessa. Tapping the profile picture to enlarge it, my memory split open like a lightning bolt, the face aligning with one in a corner of my mind. I knew her. 2 years ago, at a charity gala in the city, this girl, working as an usher, accidentally bumped into an important guest while serving champagne, spilling it all over him. The man instantly became furious, his voice low and his words sharp. "What are you doing? Didn't the organizers train you on basic work procedures? This is a serious professional error." The man was Edward Sterling, president of the LCM Group North American Division, and he had an important speech to deliver shortly. The banquet hall immediately fell silent, all eyes on the trembling girl. Seeing this, I immediately went to my car to retrieve the custom-tailored suit I had prepared as a birthday gift for Julian. Unexpectedly, the suit fit perfectly, and Edward Sterling sincerely thanked me. I took the opportunity to hand him my business card. "Mr. Sterling, I've long admired your reputation, and it's a true honor to finally meet you formally today." As I seized the opportunity to chat with Edward Sterling, out of the corner of my eye, I saw Julian standing in front of the girl, who was blaming herself and crying, softly comforting her. What? So she was Vanessa Reed. Their chat history had clearly been deleted, but the content from the last few days was still there. My fingers trembled as I scrolled up. They chatted almost every day. Julian shared everything he did with her, and the messages were full of tenderness and excitement. I couldn't remember how long it had been since he had proactively sent me messages other than asking about prenatal checkup results. They talked about daily trivialities, food and work, and the late-night logs were filled with explicit flirtation. Their most recent messages were from around 3 p.m. "Honey, my new lingerie arrived. Want me to wear it for you tonight? Can't tonight. I need to go home, or he'll get suspicious. What can you do at home? What can you do? Can you actually kiss that ugly, fat pregnant woman? Or are you going back to see a 150-pound pumpkin in lingerie? Who taught you to be so cruel? But I like it. If you like it, honey, how about a kiss? The other side didn't reply but sent 2 blood-pumping selfies of herself in sexy lingerie. Damn it, just you wait. Don't come crying and begging for mercy later. I painfully closed my eyes as a strong wave of nausea surged from my stomach, burning my throat. Clenching the phone tightly, I forced myself to regain composure. Taking a few deep breaths, I opened his bank, WhatsApp, and Alipay transfer records. Each transfer stung my eyes. Thousands, tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands, frequently flowed into Vanessa Reed's account. The earliest WhatsApp transfer record was a year and a half ago, so they had been involved for a long time. I used my phone to screen record all the chat and transfer records, then used his account to send this evidence to my own phone. Finally, before placing the phone back under his pillow, I deleted all traces. I walked out of the bedroom, took a bottle of mineral water from the fridge, and sat on the balcony sofa. I watched the eerie tree shadows swaying in the distance, the wind wailing, passing through the branches like a ghost. I sat there all night until dawn broke. I finally made up my mind, lifted my trembling hand, put the mifepristone prescribed by the doctor into my mouth, and then tilted my head back to gulp down some water. Audrey, wake up. Why are you curled up on the sofa? Get up quickly, it's not good for the fetus. His low voice woke me from my muddled sleep. I struggled to open my eyes, my vision blurry for a while before I could make out Julian in front of me. I quietly watched him, not knowing why. Even though his eyes were gentle and filled with concern at that moment, I could sense a fleeting disgust beneath his tender expression. Seeing me not respond for a while, he gently placed his hand on my stomach, feeling bad for me, and said, "Are the babes keeping you awake again? Honey, you've really worked hard." As he spoke, he carefully helped me up. Auntie made yam and millet porridge. Have breakfast, then go back to sleep for a bit. Julian handed me a toothbrush with toothpaste already on it, and then a glass of warm water. While I was brushing my teeth, his phone on the vanity lit up. The caller ID was JC. He glanced at the caller ID and frowned. Why is this client so annoying calling so early in the morning? He said this, but his hand had already picked up the phone, and he turned and walked out. His voice drifted intermittently from the balcony. Your mom was in a car accident. I'm taking you back right away. Don't cry, don't be afraid. Of course, she's your mom, my future mother-in-law. How could I not care? I brushed my teeth mechanically, but my mind couldn't help but recall last summer when my father had part of his liver removed due to hepatobiliary duct stones, and critical condition alerts were issued twice. At that time, I had just experienced my 5th IVF failure, and exhausted both physically and mentally, rushed back to my parents' place. My mom and I took turns caring for my dad at the hospital. For over 20 days, Julian never came back, only offering a few perfunctory words of concern over the phone. Before I could fully snap out of the daze of past memories, Julian appeared before me, pushing a suitcase. Honey, something unexpected came up at the company, so I have to go on a business trip for a few days. If anything happens while I'm gone, call Chloe Sullivan or Margaret. Before I could answer, he had already rushed out the door, pushing his suitcase. After Julian left, I went to a law firm and hired a senior family law attorney to handle my divorce case. As soon as I got home, I saw Margaret and Chloe Sullivan sitting in the living room watching TV. Seeing me return, they both turned their heads. Margaret frowned unhappily. You're pregnant now. Why are you still wandering around outside all day? As she spoke, she pointed to the kitchen. I stewed herbal chicken broth this morning and brought it specially for you. I went all the way to Seaview City to find a naturopath to make it. It's the best for nourishing the fetus. Drink it quickly. Chloe Sullivan pattered towards me in her slippers, her eyes sparkling. Sister-in-law, honey said you had a 4D ultrasound yesterday. Quick, show me the babe's photos. I expressionlessly handed her the folder containing the prenatal checkup documents. The folder only contained the prenatal scan report and the 4D ultrasound report. As for the pre-abortion tests, I had temporarily left them in the car. Margaret and Chloe Sullivan exclaimed exaggeratedly as they looked. Pumpkin, look, the babe's little noses are so much like honey's, so high and straight. Yeah, Mom, look at this one. The babe is smiling. They're so cute. The herbal chicken broth in the pot had cooled, and a disgusting film of oil had congealed on top. I watched it quietly for a moment, then picked up the pot and poured the broth into the garbage disposal. Ever since I got pregnant, Margaret had been finding ways to make me eat nourishing foods. I suffered from severe morning sickness and couldn't eat, but she always forced me to finish everything. You're eating for two now. These are the best for fetal development. The more you vomit, the more you need to replenish, or what if the fetus doesn't develop properly? My weight had soared from just over 90 pounds when I started IVF to 150 pounds now. This was partly due to hormone medication, and partly due to excessive nourishment after getting pregnant. I wanted to refuse, but every time after a prenatal checkup, when I saw that all the fetal development indicators on the report were good, I compromised again. After suffering through over 3 years of IVF treatment, I knew better than anyone how difficult it had been to conceive these 2 children. So even with severe morning sickness, I forced myself to swallow those tonics. I didn't want to endure the pain of egg retrieval a second time. So I thought it's okay to be a bit heavy. I can always lose weight after breastfeeding. However, now none of that mattered anymore. Over 10 minutes later, Margaret finally lifted her head from the ultrasound report. She walked into the kitchen, saw the empty pot, and nodded with satisfaction. That's more like it. Don't be like those vain women online who obsess over their figures even when pregnant. You're carrying the only male grandchild of our Sullivan family for 3 generations. A cold smile played on my lips as I listened to her repeat the platitudes I had heard countless times. Actually, when Julian and I first got married, Margaret treated me quite kindly. After all, my parents contributed a significant amount to Julian's startup capital. But later, as the company's business boomed, Margaret suddenly seemed to change, becoming critical of me for some reason. In the past, due to my nature, I didn't like conflicts and was accustomed to enduring things. Faced with her unreasonable attacks, I just assumed she was difficult to deal with due to her long widowhood, and didn't mind too much. Yet at this moment, I looked at the imperious woman and said sarcastically, "Your husband ran off with another woman long ago. What does the Sullivan family matter to you? What, do you want to be buried in their ancestral grave with them after you die?" Margaret's face instantly turned livid. "You uneducated wretch. How dare you speak to me like that? Do you want me to tear your mouth apart?" Seeing that she really intended to strike, I thrust out my already noticeably bulging belly. "Go on, hit me once, and I'll hit my stomach twice. Let's see who stops first." Her raised hand froze in midair. "Also, I'll say it again. I can't get pregnant because your son has a high sperm DNA fragmentation rate. He's all show and no go. Frankly, you should bow down to modern medicine. 30 years ago, your old Sullivan family would really have no one to carry on the family name." Margaret trembled with rage. I couldn't be bothered to watch the show on her face any longer, and slammed the door as I returned to the bedroom. Margaret always thought I was lucky to have married Julian, and become a wealthy madam in just a few years. The company was something he and I built together. Besides the part supported by both sets of parents, the startup capital consisted of bank loans Julian and I jointly applied for, as well as money borrowed from friends and family. We provided exhibition services, mainly undertaking exhibition-related business, including booth design, construction, managed operations, and logistics services. In the 3rd year of our venture, a global pandemic broke out. The pandemic caused exhibitions to halt, and all the exhibition projects we had previously signed were forced to cancel. However, we had already invested a significant amount of capital upfront for booth rentals, custom materials, and so on, not to mention labor costs. Over 60% of this money was from loans. The company plunged into despair overnight. During the toughest times, we sold our marital home, our car, and even the jewelry we bought for our wedding. It wasn't until 2 years later that the pandemic restrictions gradually eased. At that charity gala, I happened to meet Edward Sterling, the president of LCM Group North American Division. After several efforts, we finally secured LCM Group's annual exhibition services contract. This large contract not only brought the struggling company back from the brink of bankruptcy, but also laid the foundation for our future development. I was never a parasitic vine clinging to Julian. It's just that these past few years, I seem to have lost sight of what was right in front of me. My intense desire to get pregnant had become almost pathological. The more IVF failed, the more I treated it as a necessary, unyielding obsession, completely unaware that this irrational longing had long since caused me to lose myself. On the 3rd day after Julian left for his business trip, I checked into the hospital alone. When Willow Hayes pushed open the hospital room door, the anesthesia from my surgery had only just worn off. I lay pale on the hospital bed, an oxytocin 4 drip in my arm. Willow Hayes stood by the door for a long time, then suddenly burst into tears. "Audrey, are you crazy? You tried IVF for 3 years to finally get pregnant, and you tortured yourself into a wreck during that time." She rushed over, leaned down, and hugged me tightly. I closed my eyes, tears sliding from the corners, my throat constricted as if by cotton, unable to make a sound. These two tiny lives had grown in my womb for 5 months, carrying all my hopes and love. This choice for me was a profound heartache. But I didn't want any more ties to Julian. Call me malicious or call me heartless, but the moment I thought about being entangled with Julian for the next few decades because of these 2 children, I'd rather endure this excruciating pain now. Willow Hayes froze, her mouth agape in shock. It took her a while to find her voice. I knew it. I kept wondering how you could possibly bring yourself to just suddenly terminate the pregnancy. We fell into a long silence. Willow Hayes suddenly sighed, saying with a hint of sadness, "They always say women are fickle, but they swore and vowed so earnestly back then. How did everything change so completely in just a few years?" I looked at the dark circles under her eyes and cautiously asked, "Are you having problems with Nathaniel?" She slowly shook her head, her gaze vacant. "It's not exactly problems. It's just that I'm realizing now I don't really know him at all, and I understand his behavior less and less." After a moment, her eyes slowly refocused and she looked at me again. "Never mind, let's not talk about him. I'm upset. I'll stay at the hospital to take care of you these next few days." I refused. "You go about your business. I have a caregiver here. Don't let Julian misunderstand and cause trouble for you and Nathaniel." In recent years, Nathaniel, using Julian's resources, had taken on many outsourced service orders from exhibition clients, from hotel accommodation to catering and transportation, and his business had truly flourished. It wasn't easy for him to get where he is today. Nathaniel's father passed away early, and he was raised by his mother, who collected recyclables. Willow Hayes married him despite her family's objections, and it was only in the last 2 years that his parents grudgingly accepted him as their son-in-law. Although Nathaniel knew about Julian's infidelity, ultimately, Julian was the one who betrayed me, and I didn't want to involve others in my issues with him. Despite my refusal, Willow Hayes still came to see me every day, carrying pots of nourishing soup. I vaguely felt something had happened between her and Nathaniel. She was always distracted, and sometimes when I spoke to her, she would flinch as if startled. Every time I asked her what was wrong, she would just shake her head and say nothing. On the day of my discharge, Willow Hayes called to say something urgent had come up and asked me to wait for her. She would come later to help me with the discharge procedures. Actually, I had recovered quite well. Apart from a lingering dull ache in my lower abdomen, my movements were largely unrestricted. Thinking I could leave the hospital directly once Willow Hayes arrived, I went downstairs alone to handle the discharge procedures, and picked up my medication from the pharmacy. Just as I was holding my medication and preparing to leave, a commotion suddenly erupted in the hospital lobby, seemingly mixed with a woman's pained moans. I followed the sound and saw Julian carrying a girl horizontally, rushing towards the emergency room. The girl's face was deathly pale, and her white skirt was stained with blood. My legs reacted before my brain, and I stepped forward, following them. From inside the emergency room, I heard the doctor's stern reprimand. "You young people are so careless. A ruptured corpus luteum has caused abdominal bleeding. If you had come any later, it could have been fatal. The patient needs immediate laparoscopic surgery to stop the bleeding. Family, go pay the fees now." Julian took the papers, his face deathly pale, but then he suddenly froze when he turned around. In that instant, countless expressions flickered across his face. Panic, shock, guilt, remorse. But I never expected it to finally settle into a distorted look of enraged humiliation. He almost hysterically roared, "You're stalking me, Audrey, you goddamn stalker." Before he finished speaking, he seized my wrist and violently flung me against the wall. My back hit the wall hard, and I let out a muffled groan of pain. It all happened so fast, I didn't even have time to react. Julian's eyes surged with rage. "Tell me, how did you follow me?" The emergency room door opened then, and Nurse Miller walked out, her face cold. "This is a resuscitation area. Take your arguments outside." Her gaze fell on Julian and she couldn't help but frown. "Why are you still here? Your girlfriend is bleeding heavily in there, and you have the nerve to argue here." Hearing this, Julian seemed to snap awake. The anger on his face slowly solidified. His lips trembled slightly, his body stiff, and he didn't move for a long time. After a long while, he suddenly released my hand, a look of discomfiture and panic appearing on his face. "Yes, I'm sorry. I don't know what came over me just now. You go home first. I'll explain everything to you when I get back tonight." With that, he fled in a hurry. He never once noticed my now flat abdomen. Julian didn't show up that night. For the entire week that followed, He didn't appear before me, probably still figuring out how to explain himself. It wasn't until the court's divorce summons was sent to his phone that his call came in again. I just went home. You moved out. His voice held disbelief. When? The day your girlfriend's corpus luteum ruptured. The man on the other end suddenly exploded in anger. Don't you dare bring that up, you bitch. Does insulting others make you feel superior or something? Why did I receive a court summons? What exactly do you want? It should be clearly written on there. I'm filing for divorce. He sneered. Divorce is fine, but you'll have to wait a year until the 2 children are born. If you breastfeed for 6 months, I'll give you 20 million. No way. Julian's voice was mocking. 20 million is more than 10 times what your dad initially invested. In just a few years, even if your family robbed a bank, you couldn't get that much money. I can't give you more. I mean, giving you the 2 children is impossible. Haha, Audrey, I underestimated you. You want to use the children to manipulate me. I'm telling you, 10 million per child, that's the absolute highest price. You want more? No chance. I chuckled softly. What I meant by no way is that the children won't be born, because I terminated the pregnancy a week ago. A sudden silence fell on the other end, the long pause making me almost believe the call had disconnected. Julian's voice sounded squeezed from a throttled throat. No, I don't believe you, you're lying. You went through 8 stimulation cycles. You took so much hormone medication to get pregnant. You got fat and ugly. You sacrificed so much for these children. I don't believe you'd terminate the pregnancy. No, you couldn't possibly terminate the pregnancy. He spoke faster and faster, as if trying to convince himself. I calmly interrupted him. Didn't you ever wonder why you happened to see me at the hospital that day? It's because I had just finished my abortion procedure. If you still don't believe me, you can check the hospital's surgical records. Julian completely lost it. He roared hysterically on the other end of the line. How dare you? Those are my children. How dare you terminate the pregnancy without my consent? I'm calling the police. I'm suing you for murder. I'll make you pay with your life. Suit yourself, but as a friendly reminder, according to the law on women's reproductive rights, women have the freedom to choose whether or not to give birth, and spousal consent is not required for terminating a pregnancy. Make me pay with my life? Idiot. With that, I hung up. Julian seemed to go mad, searching for me everywhere. Fearing he might hurt me in a fit of rage, I simply removed my SIM card and went straight back to my parents' place. I told my parents about my plan to divorce and that I had terminated the pregnancy. Although they were heartbroken, they ultimately chose to support my decision. With 1 week left until the hearing, my lawyer contacted me for a final review of the evidence. After returning from my parents' place, as my car pulled up to the Grandview complex, my phone suddenly received a text message from Willow Hayes. At the Sterling Club. No salutation, no punctuation, just like a message sent by mistake. The Sterling Club is a renowned high-end private club in the city, operating on a membership basis, and primarily serving business elites and high-net-worth individuals. Previously, Julian and I had entered it once with a business partner due to client relations. The security management inside was extremely strict. I called back, but her phone wouldn't connect. I called Nathaniel, asking him where Willow Hayes was, saying I needed to talk to her urgently. But he stammered and couldn't explain, finally just hanging up on me. This unusual evasion intensified the unease within me. My intuition told me Willow Hayes might be in danger. But as a high-end private venue with strict security, the Sterling Club would be difficult for the police to investigate, even with a report, without clear evidence or reasonable grounds. But I couldn't wait. I drove there directly. As soon as I reached the entrance, a security guard stopped me. Ma'am, this is a membership-only establishment. Please show your membership card or provide your membership number. Just as I was wondering how to respond, a delivery driver walked over and handed a bag to the security guard. Hello, this is for Mr. Chin, client 2106. As the delivery driver walked towards his electric scooter, I heard him on the phone saying, Babe, I got a big order today. Some boss paid 500 yuan for me to buy lubricant and Viagra. Rich people really go all out, and he even asked me to buy stuff for women. My heart sank. For some reason, I had a gut feeling this order was connected to Willow Hayes. After a moment's thought, I gritted my teeth and called the police directly. I want to report an unlawful detention. My friend Willow Hayes is currently being held in room 2106 at the Sterling Club. He might be about to be sexually assaulted. Please dispatch officers immediately. I didn't care about the potential legal repercussions of making a false report at that moment. Over 10 minutes later, 2 police cars arrived with sirens wailing. The security guard at the entrance stepped forward to block them, but Sergeant Davis, leading the officers, showed his badge. "We've received a report suspecting unlawful detention here. Please cooperate with the investigation." The moment the door was pushed open, my breath almost caught in my throat. I don't know how to describe Willow Hayes as I saw him then. He was like a broken rag doll, almost covered in injuries, his hands tied behind his back, his pale skin marred with horrifying whip marks and wax stains. His entire body was trembling. My mind went blank. I practically stumbled as I wrapped a bath towel around Willow Hayes and held him tightly in my arms. The police immediately secured the scene and called an ambulance. I turned to look at the man squatting on the floor. He was trembling, his obese body curled up, his thick lips constantly quivering, like thousands of maggots wriggling. My blood roared, and I couldn't control myself any longer. I lunged forward, fiercely raking my nails across his face. Instantly, deep bloody gashes appeared on his greasy face. I continued to scratch desperately, then bit him hard. I wanted to leave a mark on his face. I wanted everyone around him to know what a monster in human form he was. He shrieked, covering his face, howling like a slaughtered pig. He weakly kicked out at me. Sergeant Davis cleared his throat softly, and Officer Green quickly stepped forward to pull me away. He reprimanded me with a stern face. "No fighting. If this continues, our team will process both of you according to the law." As the police lifted the man with the blood-streaked face, a foul-smelling yellow stain was left on the carpet where he had been sitting. That disgusting old animal had actually wet himself out of fear. When I followed the ambulance stretcher downstairs, I saw Nathaniel hiding in the greenery outside the club entrance. Seeing Willow Hayes being carried out, he lost control and rushed out, constantly shouting, "Willow, Willow." Willow Hayes never opened his eyes, but tears streamed continuously from the corners of his eyes. The ambulance slowly drove away. I looked back and saw Nathaniel on his knees, holding his head in his hands. Because of Willow Hayes' situation, I spent my days rushing between the hospital, the police station, and the law firm. In the blink of an eye, it was time for the divorce hearing. For safety reasons, I had still hired 2 professional security guards in advance. While waiting before the hearing, Margaret Sullivan saw my flat abdomen and immediately lost control, almost fainting. Chloe Sullivan's eyes welled up with tears, and she loudly demanded why I was doing this, and what their family had ever done to wrong me. However, when my attorney presented the evidence of Julian's infidelity and asset transfer, Chloe Sullivan froze. Her lips trembled, as if she couldn't believe it. Perhaps in her eyes, her brother and I had always been a loving couple. But Margaret Sullivan cried and cursed. "You did all this, you terminated my 2 precious grandchildren just for this? What's wrong with a rich man having some fun? He didn't divorce you, and the money would still end up with you and the children anyway." I calmly retorted. "Then when your husband cheated, why didn't you stay in that marriage with your 2 children? Was he just toying with you? Why did you have to push for a divorce from him?" Margaret Sullivan was momentarily speechless. Thanks to the professional litigation strategy of the attorney, and the exceptionally large sum of money involved in Julian's transfer of marital assets, the court promptly ruled for divorce and recovered the illegally transferred large assets. As for the smaller, scattered amounts, I couldn't be bothered to spend time arguing over them. Since Julian was the at-fault party, I received the majority of the marital assets. Additionally, I still held 30% of the company's shares, so I actively exercised my shareholder rights, opposing every proposal put forth by Julian. Due to the deadlock affecting the company's operations, Julian eventually acquired all my shares for 50 million yuan. After the funds were in place, I immediately registered a similar company. From office selection and team building to business layout, 6 months later, the company was already taking shape. I unexpectedly ran into Edward Sterling again at a business reception. At the time, he was in the process of leaving LCM Group to take on the role of vice chairman and CEO at a domestic tech company. It was quite dramatic, actually. That day in the venue, someone must have used perfume containing natural musk, which directly triggered Edward Sterling's acute allergic asthma attack. I didn't do much this time, just made a phone call for him to have his driver, who was waiting in the car, bring over his asthma inhaler. He thanked me again, and I, in turn, handed him my new business card. 2 years flew by. Seeing Willow Hayes' condition gradually improve, I opened a flower shop for him and hired 2 employees. That nightmare had left Willow Hayes with severe PTSD and major depression, requiring long-term psychological therapy. Thanks to the efforts of the professional legal team, the abuser was ultimately sentenced to 7 years in prison, and his reputation was utterly destroyed. Her son was soon fired from his company for not meeting job requirements, and his wife's beauty salon was later found to be practicing medicine without a license during subsequent inspections, resulting in a huge fine and license revocation. I heard she was even sentenced to a year in prison. However, Nathaniel's defense attorney stated that he had merely left half an hour early that day due to work issues and had no knowledge that his wife would be involved in such an incident. Due to insufficient evidence, Nathaniel was only administratively detained for 15 days, but he voluntarily gave up all his assets during the subsequent divorce. My career steadily rose, and the company's development progressed smoothly. Meanwhile, Julian's company faced a major crisis. Part of this was due to Edward Sterling's departure, after which LCM's new management transferred exhibition services to favored associates, causing Julian to lose significant orders. While this loss wasn't enough to shake the foundations, Nathaniel's mind-boggling maneuver delivered a fatal blow. After divorcing Willow Hayes, Nathaniel's personality changed drastically, his methods becoming increasingly opportunistic and unscrupulous. He joined Julian's company as a business manager, responsible for key client relations. During a critical project negotiation, Nathaniel, to ingratiate himself with the executives, secretly arranged a business dinner and hired several escorts. On the way back, two intoxicated executives, stirred up by the women, saw things escalate quickly. The driver lost focus for a moment, causing the vehicle to lose control and collide with an oncoming semi-truck. 3 people in the car died instantly, and the other 2 died after being taken to the hospital. After the incident came to light, Julian's company was put on the blocked list by multiple partners, its business credibility severely damaged. The company's business volume plummeted, and it was already operating at a loss. Not long after, Willow Hayes messaged me to say that Nathaniel was dead. I heard that Big Tony, the gangster behind the 2 escorts who died, demanded $20 million from him, $10 million per life. He had lost all his assets in the divorce and simply didn't have that much money. Finally, the gangsters tied him up in an abandoned building and tortured him for several days before releasing him. No one knew what he endured, but a week later, Nathaniel committed suicide by cutting his wrists in a rental apartment. To my surprise, Willow Hayes insisted on attending the funeral. I couldn't dissuade him, so I accompanied him. Throughout the ceremony, Willow Hayes remained unusually calm, just coldly watching everything unfold. It wasn't until the funeral ended that he gazed at the photo on the tombstone, then spat bitterly. "Nathaniel, I wish you an eternity in hell, reliving the agony of your final days, minute by minute." He leaned slightly, a sneer twisting his lips. "Do you know who contacted those gangsters?" He leaned slightly, a sneer twisting his lips, "But now you'll never know." As we descended the mountain wind ruffled his hair, and I saw a look of release spread across his face. Perhaps the demon that had long tormented his heart had finally vanished with the death of that man. In the parking lot at the foot of the mountain, a man was leaning against my car, looking down and kicking at the weeds in the cracks of the parking space. Seeing Willow Hayes and me approach, Julian quickly walked up to us. "Audrey, can we talk?" "No, I'm busy. I've moved on from the past. I haven't pursued you for terminating the pregnancy, and you took most of the assets. I don't feel I wronged you, so why do you bear such intense hatred towards me?" I almost laughed in disbelief. "According to you, I should be thanking you? I don't have time for your nonsense. Just tell me, what do you want? After all, we were married. Can't I just be concerned about you? I just want to know how you've been doing these past few years." I rolled my eyes. "Not well. I'm quite short on cash lately. If you're so concerned, could you lend me $50 million interest-free?" His expression stiffened, and he stood there awkwardly. "If you're looking to discuss a partnership, first prepare a proposal, then make an appointment with our company's front desk." I turned to get into the car when he finally cut to the chase. "I know you're also in exhibition services now. If you get any projects you can't handle, could you share some of the profit with me? You get 60%, I get 40%. I scoffed. I've seen shameless people, but never anyone this shameless. If I can't handle it, can't I just hire more people? That's ridiculous. He offered a wry smile. I can barely get any new orders now, and a lot of the upfront payments aren't coming back. My cash flow is almost completely broken. Cash flow problems? Don't you still have villas, luxury cars, jewelry, investments? Couldn't you just sell a few to get by? Not so long ago, wasn't I the one who helped him through all that? I had no patience to continue the conversation, and pulled open the car door. If you're looking to discuss a partnership, first prepare a proposal, then make an appointment with our company's front desk. I slammed the car door shut with a bang. During a physical exam, I was found to have an 8-centimeter chocolate cyst. After checking into the hospital, I went downstairs to the convenience store to buy nursing supplies when I unexpectedly ran into Julian and Vanessa Reed. Julian's face was pale, and he looked as if he had aged 10 years. Vanessa Reed was cowering, nervously picking at her fingers. I felt it was a bad omen, and was about to go around to the other side of the convenience store when Julian suddenly exploded in anger. "Why the hell did you do this? Haven't I been good enough to you? I divorced for you, and I even lost 2 children. Even when my company was facing financial difficulties, you wanted to buy a sports car costing over $3 million, and I bought it for you without hesitation. But you damn cheated on me in the car." Before he finished speaking, he abruptly raised his hand and slapped Vanessa Reed loudly across the face. Vanessa Reed dared not speak, merely covering her face and crying. Just then, Chloe Sullivan rushed over, supporting Margaret Sullivan. "Well, are the test results back? Is this hussy really carrying our family's blood?" Julian shook his head blankly and handed the report to Chloe Sullivan. Margaret Sullivan immediately flew into a rage. She rushed forward, grabbed Vanessa Reed's hair. "I treated you like royalty every single day, and you had the audacity to cheat on my son. I'll beat the life out of you, you worthless tramp." Vanessa Reed let her pull, and after Margaret Sullivan finished her tirade, she sneered. "You talk as if your son is so noble. He committed infidelity to be with me, so why can't I commit infidelity with someone else? The doctor told us a long time ago that Julian has a high sperm DNA fragmentation rate, with a viability rate of less than 0.5%. But you still force me to do IVF. Well, if you want a child so badly, why can't I have one with someone else? It's better than adopting a child with no blood relation from an orphanage. At least this child would have half my blood." Margaret Sullivan was speechless. Julian watched the scene unfold, then raised his hand and slapped himself twice across the face. He stumbled backward a few steps, muttering to himself, "I deserve this. This is all my karma." He walked away disconsolately. Seeing me, his body trembled, and he immediately covered his face, sobbing. Later, I stopped paying attention to what happened to Julian and Vanessa Reed. That was once the outcome they desperately sought, filled with lies, betrayal, and manipulation, ultimately dissolving into chaos. It wasn't until a dinner with several business partners that a client who had previously worked with Julian mentioned that his company had defaulted on salaries due to cash flow problems and was now overwhelmed with debt, entering bankruptcy liquidation. I remained silent for a moment, but the topic quickly shifted, and the clinking of glasses and laughter resumed at the table. A waiter politely bent to refill my empty wine glass, wishing us smoother collaborations in the future. Someone raised a toast, and I smiled, standing up to clink glasses with them. In the crisp sound, it felt as if something had completely shattered in the past. On the way back, I leaned back in the car, closing my eyes to rest. The car radio played a female radio host's gentle voice. "There is no perfection in this world, only cause and effect. Some hearts are consumed by fire, turned to ash, while others are silently waiting to break free from the chrysalis. Time never judges right or wrong. It merely silently grinds everything into dust. Love and hate are but fleeting attachments, and every encounter and departure shapes us. Life is a struggle, and ultimately we must find our own way."